We will call this meeting to order. We'll begin the evening with public comment. If there's anybody that wishes to speak. Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to updates from council, if there are any. Well, I'll say one update. This is council member Franklin and I were just talking about West Henderson High School baseball won state championship, and part of their student base is in Fletcher, so congratulations to them.
And then girls soccer.
And girls soccer had a very successful season as well.
Yeah.
Any other updates from council? All righty, seeing none. We'll move on to the consent agenda. There's two items on there regarding the moratorium and public hearing for the land development code updates for cryptocurrency. I'm assuming you have an update for us on that.
Just going to say a brief word. Good evening, everybody. These are all the consent items. I wouldn't be here, but I wanted to just be here tonight in case there was any kind of left field question. I'm going to go in front of the planning board to talk about the possible, minor little amendment to our code, insert a definition, or definition section of that use to get it broken out from, like a general warehousing use or something like that. You've probably been hearing about crypto mining on TV, and don't ask me to explain exactly anything on it. I know I'm aware of cryptocurrency in general, but there's some very technical ways that they put in these rows and rows of computers that use a ton of energy, apparently make a lot of noise. This got on my radar as many with the issue out in the Cherokee area. And then, Buncombe County got wind of it. Henderson County is in the midst of doing some stuff. Everybody's hearing about headlines. Everybody's scrambling to get it looked at in their ordinance. I know some places are just looking at trying to set up a convoluted series of ways to put in spacing requirements or very minimal areas where it would be allowed. My suggestion is, in a couple of other cases in the past, we've dealt with like electronic gaming in a way where we just break it out as a definition and then just simply don't list it in our permitted use table. It's not one of these 7 key land uses that are protected by state statutes that say you can't ban. Now the school of government folks will tell you, when you say, are we on solid legal ground? They're like, well, there's not really a precedent on anyone getting sued. So it's like, the first step would just be to simply define it and then not list it. And then if it surfaces an issue in the future, we'll revisit it. But that's going to be sort of the direction I've taken with the planning board on it. I know after some initial emails with Mark, and I know a couple council people, talking with Mark about it. So we're going to just have the planning board talk about it. I'll introduce the topic as best as I can with them and bring it back to you next month.
All right.
So Eric, we're just trying to err on the side of caution by having this all together, just in the event.
I think we really should.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, from what I hear and know about it, it wouldn't be a use that would create jobs or any real significant tax base or anything like that. And just sounds from everything I've heard about it like it would become a new issue.
And there's one in Cherokee right now?
I don't know the status. I just know that they had permitted some that it was completely unregulated, and it became,
I think it's in Jackson County.
I haven't seen anything on the news about it. I want to maybe drive out to see if I can hear the noise myself.
Yeah, the noise was the biggest complaint, but apparently they're big draws of electricity, energy too.
Thank you.
See you next
Thanks,
month.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4, the review of our applications for the vacancy on the ABC board. We have 2 applicants, Ms. Meg Rosthal, and Mr. John Brandon Olson. I know Ms. Todd, who's our chairperson. I think maybe you want to say something first. You can have the floor. And then after that, we'll have each applicant come up and introduce yourself.
Since I've seen y'all, when I first was here, it was cold winter and now it's already summer. So I've been here for about 6 months now, and we are moving. And we have a member of the board who is stepping down now. So I without recruiting people and trying to find some people to quickly fill the position. And I have a wonderful neighbor named Meg, who I kind of seeked her out to see if she was interested in the position, and I learned more about her and her career. She's retired now. And I think that she'd be a really great fit for what our current board is. So she can introduce herself and explain more about herself. But she has a background in law and in government law, so and insurance as well. And I really think that that would create a great asset to our team, since I'm more on the accounting side, Lewis is more on logistics and general business. Just to have somebody there to have a well-rounded team. So that's all I have to say. No other news for ABC board, except I have been tracking the minutes and reporting them to you guys, so I hope that
I have, the lady said she said, and I just haven't printed them off yet to share.
So hopefully you guys can start reading those and watching our updates.
Are things going a little smoother than when you first started?
I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
That was my question as well. So thank you. I appreciate it. Ms. Rostall, you're first. Just introduce yourself and tell us why you want to be on the ABC boards.
All right. As Samantha told you, I'm applying for the upcoming vacancy on the ABC board. I have lived in Fletcher a little less than 2 years. Prior to that, I've had a 35-year career as a lawyer on both the private and the public side. I started my career in a county attorney's office in Maryland, handling mostly land use issues. From there, I went to the Maryland State Attorney General's office, and I was counsel to the Insurance Commissioner of Maryland for about 8 years. So I really got a front row seat to the regulatory aspects of insurance law and how the law impacted private businesses. From there, I moved to Erie, Pennsylvania to work for Erie Insurance Group and did primarily regulatory work and government affairs. So I spent 23 years with Erie Insurance, and it was really an amazing career, a wonderful career. I think I have a lot to contribute, a lot to give to the board, and I want to be a part of my local community. With Samantha being an accountant, I'm a lawyer, and the name escapes me, but the gentleman from the logistics operation has a solid and long business background. So I think we're a good team. I believe my legal background would complement the strengths of the team, and I would ask you to look favorably on my application.
We thank you. Any questions or comments from council before? Okay, no questions or comments. Thank you. And Mr. Olson, if you would like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you want to serve.
Hey, Brandon Olson, also applied for the ABC board this evening. Proud Fletcher resident, 18 years. Academic background in economics, with a degree from UNCA. And I have a professional background that I believe also has I've developed skills that are important to the mission of the ABC board. I work for a development firm. I'm responsible for the department that handles the financial aspects of our developments. We set up the business side of each and every property that we develop, ensure the financials work for your project, and identify opportunities to either help them work better or to find, if we identify challenges, to find solutions to those for our clients. In my department, we also handle the regulatory analysis for all the markets in which we work. So we do a lot of the intersection with government and private business as well. I will say I have a curious nature myself. I'm a lifelong student of many things. I love data and research. I love going outside my comfort zone and learning about new things. And if you could say anything about me, I'm dependable and I'm the person to keep my promises. I'm a dedicated public servant, having served the past several years in various capacities here in town. spring of 21, I began volunteering with the New Century Library Partners. I took over their IT and website work, reduced costs for their website by 90%, and gave them greater autonomy and control of that website and their email system. Fall 21, I started to work here at Town Hall, for the meetings. I'm very much looking forward to the town taking over those responsibilities. But I've done that work for the past several years now. There's a lot that goes into that. It's more than just showing up and recording and go home and match all the audio tracks and do all the switching back and forth and things like that. It's been a labor of love, but it has been a labor of summer of 22, I was asked to help with the Fletcher baseball and softball leagues with their website registrations, scheduling, and communications. In that role, I joined the board as well. But in that role, I greatly improved their website functionality compared to where they were the year before. Administered 333 player accounts along with parents, over 1,000 individual accounts, and lots of interests and problems and those things. We had a successful season. It's closing out this year. We had our end-of-year Family Fun Day on Saturday. It was a great success. We budgeted for 200 hot dogs, and they came with 236, and they were all done. I don't know how many ice creams, because those kids kept coming back for those tickets. I'm sure several of them had 2 or 3, so we'll hear when we get the hammers from Mr. Babel. And the scheduling was a whole app thing, and it was good fun. But again, one of those outside my comfort zone, building websites and things is one thing, but trying to deal with a whole bunch of database accounts and things is all new. Still familiar with the work, but I have to get my hands dirty this time. As for the ABC board, I've gotten to know Mr. Watkins a little bit through our mutual interests and advocacy here at Town Hall. I've known Mr. Lynn for a number of years because we share some mutual interests. And I've been talking to him for a few years. I've only met Samantha and Todd a few times, but we reached out a couple times and talked about how meetings were handled and getting the meeting minutes up and running. I'd be interested to continue that effort and make sure that everything's moving smoothly along with properly noticing meetings and those things. I'm sure you're all aware that's an area of interest for me. But I'm not, most of you know who I am, why I'm here. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I just want to comment on thanks for helping everybody out when they reach out to you. So I'm sure you don't get it a lot, but I'm sure the community does appreciate it. Absolutely.
I appreciate that, Mr. Reed. Yeah, so New Fletcher Library Partners disbanded. Town's taken over the camera work, and the season's over. So my bandwidth is open. It's not a question of my time. Look forward to hearing from you all.
Yeah, and thank you for the large list of references right here too.
So, all the folks I work with, I asked for permission, so I did respond. So, but please feel free to reach out and speak to my ability to work well with others. And, if something's done, I'll put my hand out before we're doing this.
Thank you.
We thank you, sir. And we thank you both for applying. Thank you, Ms. Todd, for being here this evening. Just so you all know, next week, if you want to come back, we'll make the appointment. Council has the power to choose who they want. They make that appointment as long as they get a majority of the votes. That person gets a position. So we'll come back next week, we'll do that. All righty, moving on to item number 5, discussion on the camera system replacement project for 2022-2023. And the proposed camera system uplift at Fletcher Park and Town Hall. Mr. Horton.
Good evening, everybody. So the reason I'm here in front of you today is to discuss the potential budget amendment for the camera system replacement project. This was a project, a capital project that was approved for this budget year, but we have not been able to complete it yet because the vendor who originally quoted the project has been completely unresponsive. Can't even get a hard follow-up quote from him or even phone calls returned in most cases. So I've been fighting that battle for the past 6 months or so. As it got closer and closer to July 1, realized it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So we reached out to some alternative vendors and I got a quote back from a company called Brooks Network Services. They're based out of Burlington, so a little ways away, but they specialize in public safety cloud camera systems. The system that they're proposing is a little bit different than the original proposal we got from the other vendor. The original proposal was for a camera system that would be located centrally here at Town Hall and centrally located at the park, just like the existing system operates. The replacement quote that we got is for a cloud-based system, so basically the brains of the proposed system live in the cloud as opposed to here, and that kind of eliminates a big point of failure that we've seen recently, because one of the reasons we're doing this is that the central unit in this building is on the verge of failure, and the one at the park is subject, even though it is in a climate-controlled area, to extreme heat and cold throughout the year, and it doesn't really help with temperature-sensitive stuff like the hard drives that receive those videos. So instead of something like that, the cameras record their data, it goes up to the cloud, and it is freely reviewable from authorized users at that point. They can scrub through it. They can actually run searches against things, which I found was pretty interesting. So the police have an issue and they know that the issue is tied to a red car, they can actually type in red car in the search field, specify a date range, and it will show every event where a red car was recorded within that range. So pretty slick. Had a full demo of the system from the vendor. Really liked it. I had them come out, we did a walkthrough, they scoped the project, and they sent us back 2 proposals. So 2 proposals we got, we only need to accept one of these. The only difference between them is the licensing term that they're proposing. So the way these cloud cameras work is that since the storage is located at a cloud data center, we have to pay storage fees in order for that to be maintained by them. So basically we license the operation of the cameras for a certain number of years to cover those storage fees. They gave me a 5-year option and a 10-year option, and that's the difference between the proposals. And what that gets us is that's the full one-time cost for both the installation of the new systems at Town Hall and the park, and then the 5 or 10-year licensing to operate the cameras for that period of time. Once we reach the end of the licensing period, we have to pay a re-up fee, and then once that's done, they continue to operate. So the 5-year ended up being $61,339. The 10-year is $80,914, and again, the original project cost that was approved was $42,000. So we're looking at a bit of a difference there. No matter what licensing term is chosen, the hardware is warranted for 10 years, and we expect to get 10 years of service life out of it. If the funds are available, I would recommend doing the 10-year option just because we're going to save a little in the long run there. Doing that kind of locks in our fees for that period of time, and we don't have to deal with increases or whatnot that they may implement within that 10-year period, which they're going to. If we do the 5-year option, we would just revisit this in 5 years, and we would have a mandatory cost, probably in the $20,000 to $25,000 range to do another 5-year licensing. And that's about all I had. So that's where we're at with that. We're hoping to get it in this year because, again, since we can't implement the original project, we would hate to lose those pre-approved funds. And we do need to replace these camera systems. The PD in particular, especially with the park, is really suffering when it comes to having to review videos of the incidents that may take place there. So hopefully this new system will alleviate any of those concerns. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one question I have is, have you talked to any cities that are using this to see how well it works, this system?
Yeah, apparently, I can't remember who he said, but somebody in this area uses this system, and they're pretty satisfied with it. I believe it might be Hendersonville. That I had to double check that. It's either them or one of the very, very close towns.
I mean, it would be a good idea to just check with somebody just to see how smooth the system works.
What's the name of the system you're referring to?
The name of the system is Verkada. They are a spin-off of Meraki, which makes cloud-based networking equipment. It may be familiar to you if you deal with enterprise IT, but it's a name I'm very familiar with. Yeah, I have no doubts about the efficiency of the system's operation. The Meraki stuff is rock solid. I anticipate that the Verkada stuff is going to be rock solid as well.
Can you spell both of those? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Verkada is Verkada. Meraki is Merkai.
Oh, yeah, I would have guessed that.
Yeah.
We can't call them like I've got a question about 10 years is a long time in the technology world, a world away. Do you feel comfortable doing it the longer term because things might change and there might be something better than the cloud in the future, or you think there's, because you know more about
Things change
technology
within
side. That's what I'm
3
saying,
years,
that's a
yeah.
long time to
Camera systems too.
sounds like for something.
Yeah, well, in terms of IT, things move rapidly, but for static stuff like cameras, not so much. Our existing system has lasted since this building was built. It went in at the same time that the building went in. The cameras themselves, other than the ones at the park, which have taken a couple of lightning strikes, have done okay. The only bad thing about them is that since they are over 10 years old currently, the resolution on them is not that great. Obviously, we're getting all new cameras now, so we'll have cameras at a great resolution now. I believe all the ones that are proposed are 4K. I don't see the need for going even higher than that because you can only get benefits out of having so much fidelity. The main thing we're concerned about is being able to read those license plates as they exit the park. All the cameras are capable of doing that, as well as getting good facial capture and things like that. So it is a significant step up from what we have currently, and I think 10 years is a good lifetime for that type of system. We'll see where we land 10 years from now, but I can't imagine how much more complex it's going to get.
Will it come with upgrades or maintenance as time goes on?
Yeah, so again, they're warranted, so any failures or whatnot are covered. They are aware of the lighting issues out at the park and have designed the replacement system with the necessary lighting arresters to help prevent that type of thing. As part of this proposal, they're also going to rerun some of the underground cabling in the park with a different kind of cable that's less susceptible to those lightning strikes. So, knock on wood, it's going to be a little more reliable than the existing system. If we need any support or whatnot, they'll send technicians up to diagnose the system.
Are there any limits to the cloud storage?
No, storage is unlimited. That fee that we're paying covers everything.
So what is the system that we have now that you were trying to contact and get them to replace it at $42,000? What is the name of this system?
The internal system in use now is called the Vigilon. Avigilon. I don't know if they were proposing to keep it as a Vigilon with the new system. It would operate in the same way. Another thing to keep in mind is I believe Reg at Parks was able to pull a quote out of Bill Rash, who's the vendor that we originally had quoted it prior to the last series of budget meetings. And I believe he quoted him about $22,000 for a camera system replacement at the park only. If this is approved, this project overrides that one, so we won't actually have to execute that $22,000 project. So another thing to keep in mind there.
Yeah, but you're proposing 61 and 81,000. That's quite a big difference in price.
Yeah, I mean, if you add 22 on top of the 42, it gets close to the 61. But again, you only have to accept one of these.
Okay. Do what now?
You only have to accept one of these proposals. You don't need to do both.
Well, I would hope not.
Yeah.
Greg's, the proposal that ITC sent to Greg was just for the park cameras.
Correct.
Yeah, what
And this is
Matthew's presenting is
Is
the ones
town hall
that
and-
count all around town
Okay.
hall and the park. So
Yeah.
that's the distinction.
One other question I had is the company that's actually doing the install, do we know anything about them?
Yeah, so they're a company that specializes in public services, security systems. So they're a Mercado reseller, obviously, but they do not only camera systems, but access control. So that would be like your door, security readers,
Right.
and things of that nature. They looked at their website, they seem to be pretty well reviewed in their operations. Again, they're out of Burlington, actually Gibsonville, which is near Burlington. So they have to make a little bit of a trip to get up here. But in this area, you basically only have a couple of options. There's ITC, which we've been working with, somewhat successfully. And then the original installer that put these cameras in is actually based out of South Carolina. And we never really had a good relationship with them. They couldn't solve the ongoing issues. We eventually stopped using them in favor of ITC. As far as ITC is concerned, they've been pretty good as far as responding to like service events, but getting proposals out of them is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Greg said he had to fight tooth and nail to get his. I can really imagine.
Well, if we're comfortable with this, I think the 10-year will probably make the most sense in the long run. Any feedback from council, or do we think that's appropriate?
I tend to agree with the longer term personally, but
It's,
as long as it holds up technology does.
and what's the money, is that, I guess that would come out of the capital?
It
CIP?
would come out of the capital line item within the IT budget and not CIP. So I believe that was a capital project.
Yeah,
It was in your operating budget,
Yeah.
not the CIP, yeah.
But we would have to do, I guess, a budget amendment to add additional funds
Likely,
from the,
likely you will, because, with everything else that's been expended in there that was budgeted, it's probably gonna push us over. So either next week for the regular meeting, or, we do an end of year fiscal year closeout, you might receive it then.
Now, is this a system that you would help keep it running, and then when you come to a dead end, then you call them? Is that the way it would work?
Yeah, I mean, since the brains of it lives in the cloud, there's really not a lot to troubleshoot beyond the actual physical cameras themselves. And their IP cameras, they deal with the IP network, which is my domain, so I can do first-time troubleshooting for those with a problem. They either work or they don't. But the cloud stuff is totally on their end. If something breaks there, I'm picking up the phone and calling them. Basically what happens is there's a website that you go to. We enroll all of our authorized users that we want to allow access to the cameras, assign them security levels and tell them, what they can access. Can they just be the live feeds? Can they be the live feeds and the historical recorded data? And then just a little bit of training on how to use that system for everybody that it applies to, and that should be it.
So how would this work with the idea that we wanted to make public meetings available to customers?
So that's totally unrelated. The internal security cameras for the building, that building camera next to the flag is part of that system.
Oh, okay. That's
These
totally different.
are
security
independent.
cameras.
Yeah, and they're completely meant for recording council meetings.
Okay.
And that system actually has been fully implemented. The only thing that's really stopping us is I have to learn how to use it first. So once I know how to use it, I'll train Christine on it, and she'll be able to get it going. But we've got the town's YouTube channel set up. We've gone through the verification process, so we're authorized to live stream now. So it's just a matter of figuring out how the equipment operates. I'm probably going to get the installer out here to give me a breakdown of it, and then, like I said, I'll pass that knowledge along, and we'll be able to start doing this ourselves in the next couple of meetings.
I was getting ready to ask, did they not have a training session with you when they installed?
No, not yet. They just completed everything, so
Okay.
we'll get it back after it's out.
And I guess in the future, probably talk about, I know we got cameras in here for the public. It'd be nice to have something in the multi-purpose room when we have meetings up there as well.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the cost would be for that.
Yeah, I mean, it
Might
wouldn't
not
be as
be.
bad as this one because in addition to the recording system, we did do some significant upgrades as part of that project, like that projector. We had problems with the old one consistently, so that was totally replaced. Did some rewiring that you can't really see. It's all underneath the podium and everything. But we got some good upgrades out of it. I think we got our money's worth there, so a project to add something similar upstairs should be less expensive.
And this just replaces the cameras. It does the connections are all the existing connections. So we'd still have Bill Brash is who it is, you said, ITC, that if there's a connection problem, like at the park.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
we have
can
some
that
wired and
function.
some wireless. Here, we've never really had any connection issues.
Yeah, since everything in this building is self-contained,
Yeah.
we have a couple of external cameras, like one on a pole down out front, but never had really any issues with them. It's, like I said, primarily been lightning strikes at the park that have caused issues. But yeah, they're capable of troubleshooting that because it all runs under the same concepts and same type of technology.
And there's no additional licenses or anything, it's all in this one package?
That's it. Yeah, I asked him about it because I was kind of shocked. I said, is this really everything? They said, yes, that's everything that covers you for the full term. So no additional fees after that. It's just this one-time cost.
Matthew, just for the benefit of council, do you know how long they save the data from just recording at the park? Like right now, we're limited to, I think it holds it for a month and then starts recording. There's a period of time and it starts recording over it. So if something happens and the police want to review an incident, they need to look at it relatively quickly. I mean, it's not gone a day or two, but.
Yeah, so the data storage is 30 days per camera.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. And then the cloud base will have that much greater capabilities. Like you said, you can search red car and things like that, but
And again,
do you know how long?
they only record based on certain parameters that are programmed into each camera. So each camera is looking for movement in certain areas to know that it should be recording that area. So when you're searching through events, you'll have in the timeline, every time motion is detected, and that helps really narrow it down because you're really only concerned with those moments in time.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like council's comfortable with the 10-year option. I am also interested to know what the city of Hendersonville thinks about this system, or whoever.
Or whoever it is, I'd like to have us talk with somebody who's used it and let us know how
Sure.
good it is.
Yeah, I will get with my contact and have him send that information over so that we can talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you need help, if you want someone from town staff to talk to them too,
Sure.
you can do that, or I'll call somebody to help. So just let me know.
And as far as the budgeting is concerned, I asked them how quickly they could execute if it was approved. And they said they could have the system installed probably around mid-July, but they can invoice us before July 1 so that it hits this year's budget.
Good.
Well, we thank you, sir.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Matthew.
All righty, moving on to item number 6, the recommendation for a purchase of a radar speed trailer. Mr. Public Works Director.
And I'm sorry, Mayor and Council, we worked on this agenda item and he got me the information and I failed to add it to the outline, so you have an updated.
Yeah, I just
agenda.
noticed that as well, yeah. I was
You're
like,
probably
I
looking
saw
at
that.
that wasn't on there before, that's why, so.
Maybe I overlooked that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You see what we have been looking. Chief Terry contacted the Henderson Sheriff's Department. He's done quite a bit of research on this. We discussed about this. He said he'd just like to take the reins and go forth and look and see what would work best. And so they just talked about several things. What we're looking at is they call it a custom Smart 12 radar speed trap. It's very small. In subdivisions such as there's some farms, places where the curbs out up there, it could be parked on the edge of the road and still let people drive by. If we have to, where we put it out on a place where there's a grass shoulder, we put it there. You can see that. And it's for the bang for the buck is just about all we need. We don't need nothing fancy. take pictures, anything like that, which none of them do unless you get something that's really extravagant. However, I have noticed since I've been riding around here lately, there, of course, somebody's got signed up something, you know, Chadwick Avenue in Harrisville, I went through there and said, slow down. There are many things that, this in here, it's very rugged, it's very dependable. The sheriff's department has one similar to this that they have used for years. And they move, I'm sure you've seen it all over the place, they move around like that. And what we do is, it's just towable, it's lockable, and it's supposed to be secure.
Can you lock it down? Like how can you prevent it from being picked up and carried off?
You can, well, there's a couple things you do. You can take the tire off of it, or you can, that they have a ton lock. My wife says I need
I was just curious.
But the security that way, or
Did you say I needed that?
No, I said my wife said I never will I say that. And they also have a thing where you just like that put onto the tires, the lock, and you can drag it off. They're supposed to be very, very durable, and it'll record, you can set it toward, it'll record speeds from 5 to 7 miles an hour, which we're not gonna be on that low end or that high end. Most of our subdivisions are 20 to 25 miles an hour. If you set up and it'll go with it on that one. The price is gonna be $7,993, and what we're looking at doing is if it's approved it, we will order it July 1st. It's not going next year's budget, it'll go on next year's budget. This will come out of Power Bill Fund, that's one of the things they allow charge that for traffic monitoring on such as this. And I think this would be one of the, probably the better items we could purchase to see how.
So what does this give you? It gives you like a summary that the other system we had does?
In a way, but not quite, because it catches speed one way. And our other system, we mount these down when we put one on these things, so it catches speed on both ways. And so this is just a one-way thing. And which we still want to use our other thing. They're charged up, we have a program right now. I'm thinking there's not going to be a town on the street, which is a good thing too, that we're doing this, to put it out. Because that way I can compile them on our code condition survey and know what the AET is for this street, and that's a big thing. Some of them I thought would be a lot higher, but they're not. And so when we're looking at paving, you know, we're good for what we need to pay. You got a road that's got just 30 cars a day, you got a road that's got 270 cars a day. And that's proof, you know, it's justification. So we'll still use tires. And this will be mostly directed through, I don't want to say complaint driven, but I guess it would be a good way of looking at it. That the police department says, you know, let's set this up out here. And it's something that they'll set up. We'll probably still work out public works. And when they need it, they'll set it up, or they'll have to us, and we'll set it up.
But this doesn't take any pictures or anything. It doesn't record who the person is. It's just a visual thing to tell the driver they're going too fast.
It's just an indication here. And you see the ones that got flashlights and that's
Yeah.
And some of them flashlights, they're not that big either. It's just a,
It does record data though, like speeds and how many are going by.
You just don't know who the is.
Oh,
Right.
you can put a sign on that machine that says this machine records data, which is a fact. I bet that would help.
They'll be like, what data?
Yeah, your license.
Yeah.
Smile recording in progress.
But, you know, I think it's something we really need. It'd be very interesting. And you notice I've been, every time I do a traffic study on the road, I send the results mark. We're finding that most cases, we're pretty close to being, traffic being what the airlines
Do we already have one of these?
No.
Do you have to rent one every time?
No, we have traffic counts. And it records speed,
Okay.
and it records number of cars and all that.
But it doesn't interact with the driver.
No. You don't have one to say, it's on, it's mounted on pavement with a black rubber mat screwed down. Not that you can see.
I think it does have a psychological effect on people coming up to it to slow down. Now, you will get the occasional, I'll pick on a teenager maybe that thinks it's cute to speed up on it, or some older person that's not as mature, but it does have an effect to see it and okay, well, I am going that fast, or I'm going that slow, or I need to speed up.
Yeah, I think it does have a,
Good
yeah,
speed.
I think you're right.
And
But
money, I think it's a good deal.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think one of the best benefits of this is,
A machine that it was just like,
Yeah.
that's
And
it.
then you can get them to where it says, you can thumbs up, smiley face. The price is going way all up. It's just like anything else. More technology you put into it.
One of us can stand out there and give thumbs up.
one of the best,
Yeah,
well, one of the best things about this is that we can use the Power Bill funding on it, because we have so much.
that's a great thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And for this price, the two draft cameras, I can't remember what we paid for them. It was not this much. But it's several $1,000 for that.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Sounds
this will
good.
be on next year's budget, correct?
Yeah, well, we'll have monies already they'll already be appropriated the total amount for the Powell bill.
Mhm.
So initially you wouldn't, it depends on how our expenses come out for street paving and everything. So the only action, if maybe we can move this to consent
Sure.
and just approve moving forward with that purchase
Okay.
come July 1.
Yeah,
I don't think you need a budget.
It sounds like everybody's comfortable with that.
And this thing, the trailer itself, it costs just a little, about $6,000. And about $1,000 for the computer to do the traffic day study and stuff like that. And about $1,000 for the photo count. And it will have a battery backup too. It's not the bottom of the line, it's by far not the top of the line. It's very stable.
Sufficient.
Sure.
And some of the bigger ones, and I'm sorry if you mentioned this and I missed it, but they're designed more for like
Interstate.
bigger road, yeah, interstate to, or like Highway 25, yeah.
You could put it
You want
in,
something to park in your front yard.
yeah, you wouldn't want to put it in, this farm, but you have to park.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for all your research.
Yeah, thank you, Jabbo.
The cheapest one, I don't know why,
Yeah.
but the cheapest one,
Vacation.
Yeah,
he's on vacation.
he's on I asked Jamo to present on it, just, they've both been working on it.
Yeah.
They get a chief, yeah, kudos to Chief though too, that the two of them went over it, Chief did a lot of research on this.
We talked about it, and I had several places where to start with. Then he referred back to Henry County. And so he knew more about the internal workings of what we need. That would be more beneficial to them.
All right.
I like it.
All sounds good to me.
All right, thank you.
We appreciate you, sir. All righty. Item number 7, we'll have next week a public hearing and the presentation, the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance. Do you have anything ahead of next week, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, we do, the fire department.
Okay.
So you've got on the dais, it wasn't in your packet, you've got basically 4 spreadsheets. The first 2 are the overall general fund revenues. And the first one is what I presented to you at 9.5 cents and what the impact is on revenues. The second page, is if we went to 10.5 cents, which is what the fire department's recommended and what that Fire and Rescue Advisory Council is recommending, and it appears the commissioners are to approve it. As of this moment, I don't know yet. I've asked the county, I've communicated with several county officials. My understanding is today is likely to be approved. I didn't know if their meeting was in the morning or evening. I thought it was a daytime one.
I think it's 5:30.
Okay, so excuse me, yeah, they won't know yet. And I should have checked that again, but I knew they're meeting today. We should get notification on it, but I really need to have a discussion with you relative to what you want to go with, so, and I can have two different versions at the public hearing, but, you know, if we can be prepared in advance and not have to do it. And what I was proposing to do is, if you approve it at the 10.5 cent rate, you know, it adds an additional $173,201 in appropriations that you have to make. I was going to put it against fund balance or pay for that difference out of appropriated fund balance. So it's that last revenue line item on the bottom on these big spreadsheets. So yeah, that jumps up quite a bit. I guess the good news is we have, what, a little over 100,000 in excess in our CIP right now. If we're disciplined with our spending and other expense line items, we receive more revenue than we spend. We'll be in good shape that this could potentially be a wash. Don't know that for certain until we get through the budget year. And there are some items we have to bid through the budget year too. So I'm proposing you take it from appropriated fund balance. And then the last two spreadsheets just show what that additional appropriations is. The first one, where it says fire tax values, if you go to the bottom of the page at 9.5 cents, the total appropriations is $1,646,434 to Fletcher Fire and Rescue. The following page shows it at 10.5 cents, where it jumps to $1,819,635. So the difference in those two is a little over $173,000. So that's, other than that, I mean, we're ready to go. I'll work on a budget presentation this week. And, you know, I typically do a much shorter, condensed version, overview of the budget at the public hearing. But thoughts on the fire department? And if you want to wait till we know by tomorrow.
Do we know what's gonna happen? Because when I was talking to Hugh Clark today, he said that there were like 4 fire departments that lowered their tax rates. There were so many that went above and some of them stayed the same. Are we gonna end up paying more than other municipalities? I mean, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be a standard rate throughout the county. People are gonna be doing whatever they want to do.
Well, you also have to remember you know, you and I had a conversation earlier, every fire department is different. Their makeup, their staffing, so, you know, what they've historically received or what's changed in the amount of that tax rate for the fire district, they're all different scenarios. You know, Fletcher Fire and Rescue is a bigger organization. They've got, I think comparatively to some of the others, they're one of the larger ones, and they've got fairly heavily populated area to cover, 3 fire stations, and as you know, a fire district that goes outside of the town limits, the municipal fire district, so.
No, go ahead, Councilman.
And I echo what Mark's saying. Every fire department is different, so you can't really compare it with, Gert against Fletcher right there. I guess for me, I mean, talking about the tax rate, it's almost like if we go to a 9.5 and the county does a 10.5, is it fair for your neighbor, if they live outside of the county, to pay more in fire taxes, or is it fair to pay the same in fire taxes as a rate wise, if that makes sense? And to me, we battle that too. Is somebody always complaining why are they paying more for the same service? If that makes sense. So
one distinction, excuse me, Mayor, is the county bills that tax rate, the ad valorem, that tax rate for the county, and then the fire tax is a separate tax that the resident pays. In Fletcher, you get your municipal tax rate. Included within it is the fire tax portion. It's not a separate billing. So that's just one distinction. I know, I think Commissioner Lapsley, Hugh had sent some notes on it that was making that point. So it's a little bit different because we wash it within our overall tax rate. So our, for example, it's 28 cents is what's recommended now. Well, 9.5 of that 28 cents. There's not a separate bill of 9.5 cents to the resident on top of the 28 cents. As opposed to the counties, it's whatever they'll go down to, 42 cents, and then you're paying 10.5 cents to Fletcher Fire and Rescue, two different parts of the bill that are actual monies that you pay out, not included in it. So a little bit of a distinction on that. But it takes a lot of explanation, and someone might see a disparity, so.
I'm really struggling with this for a couple of reasons. One is, it was just not too long ago that the fire department was in very poor financial shape. Remember when they were saying they couldn't afford to buy turnout gear and stuff like that? Well, that wasn't that long ago, and they've completely turned it around. From what I understand, they have all the equipment that they need right now, all the turnout gear, all the trucks, everything. And they have 6 months plus of operating expenses in the bank. And to me, that doesn't sound like the fire department that's hurting for money.
Well, the 6-month operating periods, it's based off when you receive your taxes. So basically, they're working off, you don't ever receive money, your thinnest time of the year is around July, August, because when people start paying their taxes, that's when you start receiving your funds. So they were actually, that 6 months, that 6 months has got to carry them over until they start receiving money. That's the reason why it's in the bank. Like Buncombe County, they do payments every month, and it's easier than the budget. Now, for Henderson County, they don't do that. You get payments as people pay their taxes. So your I guess healthier months is December, November, December, and January. That's when you start getting your larger amounts. So yeah, they're having to operate off that 6 months. Is the reason why it's in there.
Now, this 9.5 cents is proportional to what they have now, and
It's
give it a
actually
little bit more,
right?
right?
Yes, I mean, the rate I proposed to you was proportional to the amount that you lowered it
Right.
from 34 to 28 cents.
So what's a 10 cents? I'm just trying to shoot in the middle.
What would 10 cents?
Yeah. I mean,
Half of 173, so what, 85,000 roughly of an increase based versus 9.5 cents.
Do we know how many vacancies they have?
I don't know how many vacancies.
When they did the
they have.
budget thing with us, they said 8.
8.
That's what the chief said, but I don't know if they filled.
Well, I'm just guessing that this is probably because they're trying to remain competitive.
I know Mr. Clark, Hugh Clark had mentioned, he had sent me an email, I forwarded to y'all, because he was trying to find out, what's the town going to do with the rate, and, shared some information on discussions with at least one of the commissioners at a meeting. I know they have some time to do that. You typically adopt the budget at the regular meeting in June, which is next Monday, the public hearing. I mean, if the worst case, if you had, you could do a special call to delay it. This is the thing I want to mention. So the note I received from Mr. Clark, apparently the Fletcher Fire and Rescue is working on some, I don't know if it's a pay and classification study, but some review of salaries for the firefighters. And this is along the lines of recruitment, retention, and being competitive. So that's part of, I guess, what's leading into the need to lower the rate only to 10.5 cents.
To be honest, I'm struggling with it too. it does seem to me, though, that the 9.5 cents it's fair if it's proportional and a little bit more, but I do understand wanting to remain competitive, which is, I think, why I'm struggling with it.
If it
So
comes
by
to-
next week, you'll have some information for us from the county on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Will they tell us what all the other municipalities are gonna do also, or will we know that?
We might, I can ask Jimmy Brissy, who's the emergency services manager or coordinator for the county. Excuse me, he sent out an email with a breakdown of what the fire districts, what they had asked for and what had been recommended by that Fire and Rescue Advisory Council. He sent something to the municipalities, so we knew what was going on, because some of them, like us, are contracting or pay some portion to cover some area of one or more of these separate fire district organizations. So I should know. I'm hoping by tomorrow morning I'll know what they've decided, if they make that decision tonight for Fletcher Fire and Rescue.
It just kind of seems bad timing that they're asking for a substantial increase in money at the same time that the taxpayers are being hammered with the extra taxes. And the town itself, we've pretty much kept ours to revenue neutral, but the fire department hasn't.
I think they lowered it, didn't it? Was it 11.5? Was it 11.5?
Yeah, it was 11.5 to 10.5.
And if you, like I said, if it's back and forth between 9 and 10, I guess we can even try to split the difference, say 10 or something like that.
Yeah, but at 9.5, how much more are they getting than they did last year? For this year's,
144,000, I think, is what.
From last year
Yeah,
budget.
what I compared the two. So they're achieving revenue growth, even at 9.5 cents. And their revenue neutral rate, I think, is 8.7 cents. So they're almost, not quite a penny above, but 0.8 of a penny.
so I think all of that should be playing into the equation. I mean, if they're already getting 144,000 more than they did last year, I'm okay at the 9.5. I would love to know how the county came up with 10.5, how they made that decision. I'd love to know what other municipalities are going to do. I never want to shortchange a fire department, but I'm hearing what Bob's saying, and I definitely want to see the firefighters get what they deserve. But I just want to crunch some numbers a little bit more, because knowing their revenue neutral would be 8.7, we do 9.5, and they get 144,000 more than last year. To me, it ought to go to firefighters unless they're in dire need of something they're hurting for.
And 100,
And to that point, they're also, if the county's doing 10.5 cents, then the revenue neutral is still at 8.5 or 8.7 cents, correct?
Yes. I mean, that's.
So then they
No,
would-
no, and it can, it can change just like our
Sure.
revenue neutral, because we'll get one final set
Yeah.
of values from the county, but it's kind of too late to program that in because we're so far along in the process. So ours could go, that revenue neutral could go up, it could go down. My guess, it'll probably go down a little bit if we get everything in. But you're really close to revenue neutral with the rate that I recommended to you at 28. It's
Weren't we like-
27.7.
So in the unincorporated areas that the fire department serves, it'll be, if the county sets at the 10.5%, or 10.5 cents, excuse me, which is still above that 8.7 cents,
Yes.
which is still above their revenue neutral
Yeah.
to your point. So they're still,
They're still gaining.
yeah.
Oh,
how much they gain from the county? I know the 144 is from us, but they also gain a chunk from the county. How much do you have?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to.
We could probably get
see
those
what-
figures.
Yeah. We probably could run the calculation from the budget request that we got from them, because that is probably plugged in with the set of values that, we used for that last budget workshop we had.
I'd say it's at least 144, probably more.
Yeah, and
So it's 288.
their valuation, I want to say, is, no, I don't know the exact proportion, but if we're about 55% of their budget, they're probably getting about 55% of the value determination, because then I guess if they're doing this exactly right, then that value determination for the other part of their district, which is the unincorporated areas, it's probably going to be less. 'Cause we've got more industry and homes and stuff in Fletcher versus unincorporated parts of the fire district for Fletcher Fire and Rescue.
Makes sense.
So
Do
it
you,
may
are
be
you aware
45%.
how they approach the COLA raises or anything with the fire
Well,
department?
only thing last I heard, but they're looking at doing, don't hold me to it because it could change it, was like a 7% COLA.
And that's one thing that Hugh mentioned today. He said that the starting salary for the Fletcher Fire Department was substantially less than starting salaries at other fire departments. And he says that's why they're losing people.
We've been fussing about that. When I was on the board, I was complaining about that, and Hugh's response was, well, we have a career ladder in place, or we have protocol if they do this many trainings. If you look at all of these trainings they do, then they'll beef up to this point. You're not taking into consideration their benefits. I mean, there was a response to, they're not making enough money, period. And so that was just kind of bucked back by they're expected to do certain training, and if they don't do, elevated levels of training, then they're not going to get the money. So yeah, I guess I think that's to you just disappointment.
I'm really struggling with this.
Well, it sounds like to me maybe,
Get some solid numbers.
So we'll look at some more
Yeah,
numbers. and
except they're
we'll
voting tonight, so.
We'll study
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can let you know, hopefully by tomorrow, I should be able to tell you if they take action tonight, what they do. I'm anticipating it's 10.5 cents, but I won't say that for sure until then.
You got to know by the next week.
Yeah, I mean, you could I'll prepare a budget presentation, but you'll have, like I've got it right here, what the difference is in appropriations and where it would be coming from. Like right now, I've got it coming from fund balance to increase that as far as where revenue-wise it's coming from. And then you've got the total expense amount in here. And so we just have to make sure on that final adopted one that it reflects that if you go up.
so is there any way, it sounds like we haven't made a decision this evening, I don't think we are from what I can hear. Is there any way that you all could prepare, I guess, 2 budgets that we could see next week?
Yeah.
And then we could
Yep.
approve whichever one, I guess,
Yeah.
council's comfortable with.
I'll prepare the budget presentation and we'll have the 2 scenarios, or I'll make some reference to it. But your bottom line number, which would be the total expense, and then revenue, where that's coming from, the balance. I mean, you've essentially got it now,
Right here,
but
yeah.
I'll put it within.
Is it going to be between
Presentation.
9.5 and 10.5, or we look even,
Yeah.
does everybody want to just do away with the 10.5, go straight to 10, for it's 9.5 and 10? I'm just trying to figure out
Or
something.
I just
10,
won't
10
think
and a
about it.
Or 10 or 10.5, which one?
We can, if that's what you.
I mean, if everybody don't like the 10.5, I mean, you might as well just go 9.5 and 10, or vice versa. Because it looks like there's 3 different, could be 3 different options there. That's a lot of work, putting 3 different budgets together.
But
What wasn't the question for the 10.5 cents? Is it fair to, I guess, the unincorporated portions that's served, if they're paying 10.5 and we're not? But I don't guess it matters either.
If he says it's
It's a wash.
it's,
yeah, I understand.
yeah, if I understand, Mark said it's done a little different. It's
Yeah, it's all incorporated. to our-
incorporated versus they pay us separate, so.
I guess my point is, that's the argument that the county's gonna make. regardless. I still understand what Mark's saying.
You absorb it
Oh,
as
so are.
as a contracted service. It's part of, your core services, let's just say. The county budgets for
Or it's like a
it
special district, right?
separate, yeah, there's
Yeah.
a separate fire district that has that rate.
Yeah, I understand.
And I mean, I'm a county taxpayer too. When I
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
bill,
I get it, yeah.
it says the tax rate that the county establishes for all the services they provide, with the exception of fire and rescue. And then you got a fire tax rate for whatever district you're in. You pay that amount in addition to the
It's a county tax
county.
rate, yeah.
But here.
It's all
you'll
into
get-
one tax rate.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
sometimes we've
But
broken
where do
it
we
out
get
on the
that,
bill,
how do we
but-
get that contract money? I mean, how do you come up with that dollar amount? Is it from the millage then, or at the 9.5?
Yeah.
I guess that's what I was trying to think about, and that's what they're saying is, how we come up with that money is the 10.5 that they're charging, 10.5 the county, we should charge 10.5 in the city, and that money automatically, we just collect it and hand it back to them as a contract. Correct? Basically, does the money that we receive for a contract for them is from the taxes we collect from the millage, like the 9.5. So if you did the 10, if the county is already doing the kind of the same thing, they just got it broken down, we just got it all put in our budget, the same budget. Because the money that we collect from either 9.5, 10.5, you're taking that money and putting it straight in that allocated fund of the contract. What they're doing is basically he's taking it and giving it straight to them as well.
Yeah.
So, you see what I'm saying? It seems like we're kind of doing the same thing, but we're just kind of got it in a different
Yeah,
line item.
Yeah, we do it differently in the sense that it's a part of our overall tax rate. That's the biggest difference. And our values are probably higher than that unincorporated area, just because we have more tax base. We have more industry, commercial mix than those unincorporated areas do. I mean, I'd have to see exactly what their value they receive in the unincorporated parts of the fire district. So 9.5 cents may actually be worth more than that 10.5 cents in that unincorporated area if the value is that much lower in the unincorporated part. You know, it's just a math thing.
Right, I
You know,
understand.
lower value on that rate, but ours actually probably, and I'm not trying to oversell this, I'm just trying to explain that 9.5 in our.
Because the industrial and stuff like that. I guess what I was talking about is if I use Hooper's Creek, you know, our line stuff comes side by side. If Sheila's house is valued at $300,000, Preston's house is valued at $300,000 too. He's paying 10.5, she's paying 9.5. He's gonna be paying more for fire taxes than she is in the residential area for the same services. I think that's where the county's probably coming back out saying that. I know ours has got industrial and everything else, so our total value goes up. But for people who's actually paying the paycheck or paying their taxes, they see a difference in it. But
I mean, for consistency's sake, we typically portion the same amount of tax rate as the county.
You know, to be honest, I'm really comfortable with the 9.5 cent rate. But if,
To do what?
I'm really comfortable with the 9.5 cent rate, to be honest.
I am
It
too.
seems fair to me, to be honest, but I don't think all of council's in agreement on that. I think maybe we're struggling.
You can look at some
Which
more,
is-
I can see some more numbers.
more information and really dig at it a little bit.
That's why I'm saying if he's doing two different budgets, do you want to do the 9.5 and 10 and just take off the table 10.5? So, I mean, it's a smaller step, but
I can have all three ready to, if you want to vote.
that's a lot of work.
Well, it's really just multiplying that rate times that value and what that spits out. And then changing the amount in fund balance that's needed to get it to balance. So I've got two versions here right now. It would just be one more. I mean, I'll get with Heather on it, and she may have some thoughts on this too. I mean, I work on the presentation. She helps with obviously a lot of this. So we may have an idea on it. I guess it could come down to, you're needing, you may vote on these two different versions and it comes out with a different result. So, and that's just, what you agree or disagree and come to some majority vote on.
I'm struggling with what the fire department wants versus what they need. And I got a funny feeling that the county, by interviewing all the fire departments, everybody came to the table with, oh, this is what I want.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Without a real study to the budget that they're operating on.
I think taking that 10.5 and unincorporated and the 9.5 here, I really think our 9.5 is fair. But it sounds like maybe we want 3 different numbers ran for next week, the 9.5, 10, and 10.5. But that's not too much to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Are we okay with that?
Any
Yeah, that's
information
fine.
we can get on what the other
Yeah,
departments.
I've got a
For
note
what the county's
here,
paying, I'd love to see what that number is in total, both of them, and see what the.
if they're doing
total
anything
increase.
different, on what they're apportioning to, the, fire district that's associated with that municipality.
Does Buncombe County have a clear a fire rate? What is it over there?
Well, it depends on the district. Each district's different, if that makes sense. Like you can go to Broad River or Barnesville, their tax rate's 22 cents. You go to Skyland, it's 8. So it's two totally different because of the value of the land.
Skyland is 8 right now? Or that's the new one?
Well, 9.8, I'm sorry.
9.8.
And we're like the lowest one in the county, but again, we have a lot of, like Mark was saying, industrial, commercial, a lot of residential. Our 1 cent is a whole lot more than adding 1 cent to like the Barnesville.
Yeah, yeah.
I just reached out to someone just a minute ago, and they're pretty certain it'll be approved at 10.5.
Can we figure out the actual number that the county's given to Fletcher, so I can take that number and come and add it to ours and see the total increase? That kind of helped me also look at that as well. Like if it's going to be $300,000 increase, 400, or
You want to know what the increase is from
the county, then add our increase if it's at 9.5, and see what the total increase that they're receiving from
Gotcha.
next year's budget. I mean,
Well,
I'm
it's
not
going,
sure.
it's going to be a lot.
It might be a significant amount.
it is.
And then you kind of figure that, what's the percentage increase then at our total budget? If it's like 20%, that kind of shows if it's 20%, that's good.
Didn't we have a period back 12, 15 years ago where we paid higher than the county?
Yeah, you have this,
Well, nobody from the
Like
county
1 cent.
complained then.
you have this unusual
Like a 1 cent higher.
extra penny thing.
Yeah.
You get away with that about.
I mean, if I remember right, we gave them the penny because they came to us and said that they were in dire needs of
Right.
funds, and that's why we gave it to them.
Yeah.
Was that back when George Irwin was telling us how bad it was, that they couldn't even afford coffee or coffee filters, and it was just horrendous. And then, of course, a few years later, we're finding out why.
Okay, any more on that item? All righty, moving on to item number 8, the presentation of a draft traffic calming policy. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. In your packet, you've got a copy of the draft policy, and there would still be a couple tweaks to this, and I couldn't find a clean version. When I say clean, one in Word, so some of this is just a formatting explanation, but the very old copy of this, McGill Associates had actually worked, or Martin McGill, they used to be Martin McGill with Denny Martin's company. They had worked on some version. We can't find any record that it was ever adopted, and I don't have a clean electron. So I got a PDF, I converted it to Word, and I had some major formatting issues. So I'm trying to get the clean one from McGill Associates if they can find an old version. So there's a couple things we'll clean up, because there's like one edit in here in particular about not having the neighborhood association pay for half of the
50%.
installation cost, because that's kind of, it's pretty uncommon to do that to residents if you're implementing a traffic calming improvement. So with that, I just want to preface it. So, I mean, you could, if you're comfortable, let's say next week adopting this, and that there would be one amendment. It's there's a reference on first page of the policy. You have my memo, and then it's highlighted in yellow. It's about the neighborhood group paying 50% of the installation costs. I was going to strike that out, and I had it in the version I was working on, but it's just some of the other formatting, it really jumbled it up, and it wasn't very clean to look at. This is a clean copy, with the exception of taking that part out. So it's a fairly straightforward, and it's similar in some respects to some of the other traffic policies that I looked at, like City of Asheville, City of Hickory. The difference and why I think this one fits better, with some tweaks, is it's pretty straightforward, and it looks just at streets that are town maintained in residential areas. Some of the others get into some of the streets you really don't have a lot of control over. There could be some, and then you got to work with DOT on it. I mean, for the most part, our issues of traffic calming things are really issues within subdivision, town maintained roads. Some of the other things are kind of outside your control. I mean, you can ask for these things on Fanning Bridge or 25, but it's a DOT decision. So, and the other ones, they had their own traffic engineers on staff that were getting into different levels, and announced that we don't have that, other than hiring somebody on a contract basis. So I'll run through how it basically, the policy works, and it's a 8-step process, and it is a guideline. You can, if you want, deviate from something in this if you approve it, and use it as a implementing policy for dealing with traffic calming petitions. But basically how it works, 8-step process. It starts with the resident can bring a request or complaint about speeding to council. And some of this we handle on our own. The police department goes and does targeted enforcement in the neighborhood to try and address speeding complaints. But basically, they bring a request to you like that. You say, okay, this is something I think we should check out based on the information. It gets delegated to the police chief. The police chief goes and, he would look at citation, accident history in that area, increase enforcement of posted speed limits so they could do some traffic enforcement. It talks about parking violations. We don't do a lot of parking enforcement, but that's another thing. Putting the speed monitoring trailer out, which we're about to, July purchase. And then like education initiatives, so letting the residents know, hey, we're getting complaints about speeding, because most of the people speeding in these neighborhoods live in the neighborhood. It's not someone just passing through, so you're enforcing this mostly against residents there. So that's the first step, and so the chief will go and do that, look at these things, and then report back to council. And then in the second step on this, if you feel that adequately addresses the issue, then it kind of ends there. And if you feel there's short trains, I eat my words here.
All time.
Yeah, now that they're not hauling coal.
Yeah, usually very short when they come through, and it's in the evening like this. Yep, there we go, it's the end. So if chief brings their review, some of these actions back, if you feel it addresses it, then it kind of ends there. If not, you feel that additional measures are needed, then it requires that the residents that resident who brought it forward has to get a petition signed by at least 10 residents in the affected area. So they do that, they bring it back, then we collect more data. The data collected then from that point looks at traffic volume, and typically at least 600 cars a day or more, or 100 during peak volume times. The length of the street, try to keep it where it's at least 1,000-foot street or more. The grade, we don't have a lot of areas where it would be a really steep grade, but if it's
We have some.
greater than, that are greater than 8%. And then you don't want a traffic calming measure in there that would ruin sight distance for someone coming from a different direction. So that data gets put into the scenario of that particular location. And if if all those thresholds are not met, then the resident's told that the petition is denied. So it kind of ends there. So there's a lot of stopgap in this. So you don't get someone coming and saying, I want this street rerouted and speed tables on there, whatever the whole menu of things. And you just don't see the merit based on the review on these things and the traffic volumes. So then if those things are not met, it ends. If they are, then it goes into a further review, and that's step 3. And it's called prioritization, but that's really where if you're getting multiple requests that have reached this level, and you got to prioritize because you only have so much money to install these things, it comes to a plan. So then that gets ranked, and there's a point system and a table in there. It's on page 3 in the policy. Then they're looking at collecting speed data and where speeds fall in the 85th percentile, pedestrian activity, crash history, traffic volume, and then sidewalks. If they don't have sidewalks, you get extra points. So then you put that in the point system and gets a ranking. And again, that step is just if you have multiple requests that have reached this level of review. So let's say, with all those, it reaches this point and it's one you're still considering, then the next step is basically getting neighborhood involvement. It's a neighborhood stakeholder meeting where you talk about what are some toolbox of traffic calming measures that you can do, go over the review, the data collected with them, and then discuss a traffic calming plan with lots of feedback from the community. And then the next step is a little more detailed conceptual plan that after you've got that feedback and looked at the data. And then the sixth step is a report to the neighborhood and what that then kind of more definitive plan would be. And it would include approximate project costs, the installation schedule, and then you get additional feedback from the residents on the recommended design.
So you're gonna take out the thing here about the town requires 50%?
That's what I was recommending, yeah. And then the seventh step here, and again, this is requiring a lot of approval by most of the people in the neighborhood. You have a final public meeting, the budget, the schedule are presented, and then the residents that are in that affected area then you have to get them a ballot, and there's a ballot in here, and you got to get 80% approval from the people in that affected area. So let's just say it made it to this point, and the recommendation is speed table. Well, if you can't get
80%.
Yeah, then that And then maybe you look at something else, but
That's fair.
it goes back through that, or at least some of those steps. And then step 8 is about removal, that the measures, if you put them in place, let's say signage, a speed table, some striping, and there's all kinds of other things you can do further into it in that kind of toolbox of options. But if after 2 years, either the residents don't like it or council, you all don't like it, and you say there's some really major issues with it, we don't want it in there, you can have that taken out, or the residents can petition, but 80% of them have to approve the petition in that affected area. So that's kind of in a quick and dirty how the policy works. And then if you go a little further into the breakout of policy, that this toolkit or toolbox, not kit, toolbox of these traffic calming measures, it lists several different types, non-physical measures, and that's the speed enforcement, radar trailers, lane striping, pavement marking, signage, high visibility crosswalks, on-street parking, raised pavement markers, streetscaping, turning and other restrictions in gateway entrances. So that's the non-physical list, and that's kind of probably the first thing you'd attack it with, or maybe not, depending on the situation. And then the next set is vertical measures. And the vertical measures are things like textured pavements, speed humps, speed lumps, speed tables, raised crosswalks, and raised intersections. And all through the policy, it has pictures and it has a description of what each of these things are, if you don't know, or they're not, self-explanatory. So those are kind of vertical measures you can look at. And then it goes into horizontal measures. So this is curb extensions that can come out, chicanes. Chicanes are, like an example of that is downtown Hendersonville, Main Street, when they redid it, it's got that kind of serpentine, and that's a traffic calming measure. And it makes sense there. 2-lane chokers, medians, and lane shifting and alternating parking. And that's, and then they have another section, which I don't think we'd ever get to, the street closures, diagonal diverters, and semi-diverters. So those are that's kind of the tool box there for all these things. And in a nutshell, how it works. But I think this has a good way of doing some intermediary things before you get to putting together a traffic calming plan for your installing some of these things. So I think it's got some good stopgap measures, if you will. Now, the traffic volume cutoff might seem too high for some, because just for comparison's sake, like Windsor Forest, when we did some of the traffic data collection out there, I think it was only I just looked at it earlier today, 600 or 700 vehicles for the whole week, not daily. The peak time may be different, but you're already doing some things. You lowered the speed limit there, got the speed trailer. I know they've got no through truck traffic, or no through traffic, excuse me. So that's the draft policy. So any thoughts on that, and get comfortable with it.
I just think we have to be careful, because if we start putting in speed bumps or something, as soon as they go up in one neighborhood, people are gonna be screaming, they're gonna want them in every neighborhood. And are we prepared for the cost of that?
And I will say, if you, and you can deviate, this is a policy and it's a guideline, but if you hold to this, most places aren't gonna qualify.
Yeah, because of the numbers.
Yeah, because of the
Yeah.
numbers. So it kind of vets it out.
So I think that's the beauty of this,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
That's true.
But, yeah, I mean, you
Does it
can still do
automatic.
things that
Yeah.
address the residents' concerns.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like you lowered the speed limit in Windsor Forest. We had targeted enforcement out there, so the police were doing, radar in the neighborhood. Signage, the no through no through traffic. So. those
Well, I'll
are
say,
things.
I like this a lot. I think it's really fair, and I wish we had it when Windsor Forest was, had their traffic concerns, because it was, I think it'll be more clear to council too. It was really difficult for me to tell how many people actually wanted it and didn't want it, because there are people that are here, whole families, and it looks like a lot of people, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at Windsor Forest, maybe not that many people. So I like this a lot. The only feedback I would have was with this traffic calming voting ballot. Is there a way they could just, do we have like an email on there? Make it easy for people
Oh, yeah.
to turn in. Yeah, it just says return to town hall, but
Yeah.
there's like an email or
I'm sure-
somewhere.
I'm sure we could,
Yeah. Just add.
put it as a word.
So with those, are we
I
gonna,
think we probably have to have it signed, so.
are we gonna hand deliver them to every household, or how are we gonna distribute these? Or are we just gonna get the votes from the people that are charged up about the issue and not get
Well-
everybody?
You gotta get, so if it, after that
That's what
first
we have
step,
to
well,
get.
after that first.
80% of what? 80% of the people in a meeting, or 80% of the people actually living there?
Are the residents of the affected
As you
area.
define the affected area, and it's
It's
got
the-
some guidelines in there, what's the affected area. But remember that 80%, that's only if you've got the traffic volume, you've got the length of the street, you've got all those things that's pushing it into,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna look at some specific, so they petition, and then if it meets those criteria, then you're going into some specific traffic calming measures, then that would lead to, okay, this is a recommendation, what we do for the traffic calming measures, and then they have to vote. So it's only when it meets all the way to that where there'd be that ballot with the 80%. To start way earlier, it's a petition for 10, if you feel more needs to be done other than the police addressing some of these front-end things. So-
Do we need any more discussions with the police department? In other words, do we need to impress upon them to maybe start writing more tickets and less warnings in our subdivisions?
Well, I think that also begs the question of the relationship that the police have with the public. I think that could have a negative impact.
Yeah, but
It just
it would,
depends on the demand. If people are flying, I'm with you. I think if we have a problem and people complaining, I agree. The tickets are a better option than just.
to me, if somebody's going more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit in the subdivision, they should get a ticket. There
Well,
shouldn't
no,
be a warning.
Some of them are getting tickets, it's just they have the option and they try and balance it with warnings versus an actual citation that gets processed. They're not just doing warnings.
I mean, if I get a warning, and I know I got the warning in, more than likely, I'm not gonna speed in the area anymore.
Yeah.
I think generally,
I've never got a warning.
I think generally
Wasn't
people,
here.
I think generally people would probably agree with that. So are we comfortable with this policy minus that 50% contribution piece?
Yep.
All right.
I mean, you think about it, look at it, read through it, if you got issues or something, and if you're comfortable, you can approve it next week, or if you need more time. But I just want to keep this moving here, and
Sure.
I'll work on getting a good, clean version once it's adopted.
Yeah, thank you. Anything more on that item before we move on? All righty, moving on to your comments, Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you. So several things, our tennis, pickleball, basketball courts at the park, that's moving along fairly smoothly. You can see they're doing the grading and the rolling, and think it'll be setting concrete down in there, that has to cure. And then I know there's asphalt component to it too. They processed the change order for that storm drainage part, I mean, we've got that and approved it. And after some credits, it was like $9,800. There was another issue when they were doing site improvements that's gonna create another change order. Hopefully this is the last one, once they kind of know the base, and then it goes much more vertical. When they were doing the undercut and fill on there, so whenever you do a project on the ground there, they estimate the undercut and fill, so how much earth moved and then gravel, and they have to get that compaction right. And there was more than what they anticipated. It wound up being softer in one area. So there's another one coming on that. And Ben Caffey and McGill had estimated about 10,000, maybe less. So hopefully that's our last one.
So what do they do in that situation? Just take out more of the softer dirt and put in more of the good dirt?
Yeah, and gravel. So that you get that compaction.
Now, when they remove any dirt from a project like this, does the town use it, or do they haul it off?
It has to go to certified places.
Well,
If the dirt's at a certain level.
yeah, I think we're putting this over, we stockpiled some dirt over
On the
next to the
dog
dog park, yeah, so I think this is going over there, yeah. But other than that, it's going along fine. I'm excited about this. I think the public will be really excited. The actuated flasher signal at Hooper's Creek Road and Wildbriar, I know I told you it was almost up. I don't know if I told you, it is fully, it's been turned on, it's running, so so happy to finally see that done and operational. The next thing, and this is not as good a news here, but you also have the email I sent to you about Town Center, an additional data collection that our former developer put together. It was about, they were trying to look at how much percentage of left turn movement into two of their other Triangle Stop stores. And they were hoping it would be maybe in the 5 to 10% range, but when they ran the data, they had Matter and Craig do measurements, it was in the like 30 to 35% turning left. So they're obviously quite concerned about that, and I had a long discussion with Will Bowie on the phone Friday about it, and they're essentially out of the project now.
Now, do they lose any earnest money or anything?
I think we've already, the amount that they earned and we had to pay back, we've already done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the percentage again? Did you say 30 or 35?
So they looked at two store locations, the Fletcher's, that must be the one by the airport, yeah, and then that Penrose, the one that's Brevard out that way, the one at 64 in Craig Creek, yeah.
Right in front of the
Yeah,
quarry.
in front of the quarry. And then I forget which one had which data, I've got it here. It was like 30% of the movement around that going into the one location, and then the other was a little bit higher than that. It was
I'm surprised the one up here at the airport was that high.
Yeah, I know,
Because
because
you can come in the back way to the red light, and
it's-
it would be totally not.
it's not convenient to turn left in
Well,
this side over here. It's a lot
It's not
easier on
comparable either.
Brevard Road to do that, but.
Amazon
Traffic
coming
is
in.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Well, they tried, that's, I'm glad you said, because they tried to back out that, so, because that
really?
could skew it, yes, so they did. Yep, so, yeah, the Brevard site had about 26 and 30%, I don't know, these are two different intervals of the left turn movement, and then Fletcher one was 32% on a weekday, and then 35% on a weekend. Yeah, and then the Brevard site was 26% weekday and 30% on a weekend. So, I had a long conversation with Will. They really wanted to stay in this, and you know what put this up to that level with what DOT said had to be done with the traffic mitigation requirements, it's, the convenience store generates so many trips. The overall project, that's what put it over the edge. And, you know, quite frankly, picture trying to do a left-hand turn lane in there at rush hour times, either afternoon or morning. It'd be pretty darn hard or cause backups. So it probably makes sense to restrict right in, right out on Depot, and also where the road would run in Howard Gap. So, I mean, where does this take us now? I mean, we're trying to staff-wise process this, so, you know, we can come back with suggestions, kind of where do we go from here, how we move forward.
Well, the
Yes.
best would, like you said, Howard Gap and the depot, you know, the parallel road that was gonna go through, that would be the thing that everybody, it wouldn't take them long to figure that out, but
Yeah, I mean,
I understand they're looking at the main
yeah.
drag,
So,
and I wish it was a drag
yeah, and we're,
instead of a,
we're
Speedway.
looking at other developer partners. I know Magnolia Properties had expressed a fair amount of interest. Eric and I sat down with Zach Probin from Magnolia and gave him a lot of data about our project, kind of all the environmentals and specifics of all the parcels, everything. And, you know, he kind of thought it was pretty challenging for Lewis Real Estate and the Waddells to do what they were trying to do there. He was going to take a look at it and come back with some ideas. We hadn't heard from them. They're really moving forward with their food hall project across the street. I really think as that gets completed, and that's going to happen, but, you know, probably by the fall, I'm guessing they'll probably be opening some parts of it. You're going to see a lot of activity in there. That helps increase the interest value of this land that I think would complement what they're doing over there with probably more restaurant, with better parking situation. So that, I mean, I think that should help, but they're one, not Biltmore Farms, but Windsor Built has a commercial division, and Eric has reached out to them. Him and I are going to be meeting with them on June 15th, his contact with them. They're interested, and they've done some interesting stuff around the country with their commercial division. So there's others out there, but I mean, yeah, we'll contact them individually, but do we do an RFP again? Is the timing bad for it? Do you wait? I don't, I'm trying to feel this out so we can, you know, help you make good decisions on it. So, I don't know, those are some things.
One question I have is, when should we consider doing another appraisal? I mean, the price of land has been skyrocketing lately, and we haven't done an appraisal in quite a while.
I'll tell you this, Bob, we have to determine fair market value when we sell it. So, you know, if it sits for any period of time, we probably have to do another one anyways. It's some tool. There's some other things out there, but that's probably the best one to try and get a fair market value determination on it. I will say this, it's expensive land, and it's not cheap to develop that property. Now, you did put some subsidy in there, the $150,000 for the road, which we know wasn't built, and the demo. So, I mean, that had real value. But it's probably going to be the same thing to get the developers' numbers to help them get it to work to do what we want them to do as far as a mixed-use development. There's probably going to be some public-private, town money infused into that to help get them. Because that was another point that Will had mentioned is it's just the land development costs for that northern half is pretty costly to, and that's why they felt, I mean, there can be other types of uses, but they felt that triangle stop really needed to be in there to help capitalize and get some of the revenue they needed to do the other stuff, make their numbers work. But they they felt they couldn't get their pro forma to work if that left turn movement was so limited like that. So, I don't know, we're trying to take a deep breath on this, and, you know, I'll be coming back with, you know, additional report on this, and what are kind of some suggestions we can look at doing, or options. I mean, the good thing is, we're in very good shape financially. You know, we don't have that much debt on the property. It's very low interest rates.
We don't have to react real quick.
No, I mean, you don't, I mean, unless you want us to, but the interest rate that we got for, you know, borrowing on that compared to what interest rates are now is like dirt cheap, so it's not hurting us in a real material fashion, other than, you know, you want to do something of value with it for the town. So, that's what happened.
Well, I appreciate all staff and council's work on it over the years.
And we appreciate council's patience and determination on this. It's, boy, it's been a long haul. You know, I did just one other thought on this, and I'll stop talking about it, but, you know, getting all those little parcels together was no small feat. You know, and I'm saying this in the context, you know, we had a lot of moments when the broker and I are working on it where I'm like, this isn't meant to be.
Yeah.
We can't get, you know, Sammy's property, we can't get Kenneth Youngblood's, or, you know, whatever it was in there, and it was just all over the place. Or, you know, the folks who own the property for James Auto Upholstery, you know, it was a tough negotiation with all the parties. We got that all together, you know, that was all, you got one solid piece of land there that's worth something. Yeah, it's got some challenges, railroad track, and environmentals, not really, because it was cleaned up or minimal. But if that hadn't happened, I don't think this would have been meant to be, to get it to this point. And you've done some of the site clearance on it now.
Yeah.
So that makes it more valuable. You know, we might have to do another, I don't know if we'll be able to use the old appraisal, but,
I mean,
It's
if
a lot of
somebody
money.
like Magnolia comes up and says, yeah, we'd like to really consider the property, how do we give them a value? How do we tell them what it's gonna cost?
well, I either use the last one, the last appraisal, thank you, or we do another one.
And that's kind of what I'm wondering, how long ago did we do the last appraisal?
About 2 years ago.
Was it just that short?
Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was pretty close to where we started negotiating with
Okay.
them and got the contract.
I was thinking it was older for some reason.
It might be older than that, but maybe 2.5 years, something like that.
But like you said, when they clean up that corner across the street, that'll start
Yeah.
making things look better.
And the other thing, and I can talk to you more next month about it, the residual acreage that DOT has held on to, you know, like by the clock tower at the north end, and then down at the south end where Fletcher Lawn and Garden used to be, do we continue to move forward to get that? I know it sure doesn't feel good to talk about that now with everything caught, you know, money-wise, we've sunk into it, but that's a challenge, you know, with developers, is if they want everything up to the corner, if we don't have control of it, we gotta go through those hoops with DOT and get them to release it, so.
Even though this project is kind of dead in the water right now, what can we do to try to push DOT along to make that right turn lane on Fanning Ridge Road? That's needed regardless. Is there anything we can do to?
We can, I don't know if that has to be like a tip thing, or maybe it's a small project that they can
Yeah, I
get to
don't
another.
think it would be on
Yeah,
tip.
tip.
I mean, I was looking tonight, if they had another 50 foot of that right turn lane,
Yeah,
that whole thing would go so much smoother.
right.
Maybe not every single red light, but at least most of the red lights.
But the trouble is now, if the first car
Stops.
doesn't get all the way to the very left of that lane, nobody gets by.
Well, my truck, I don't pass them even if they're up there anyway, because I don't got it on the curb.
Yeah.
Okay, any more business? Or are you
I'm
done?
sorry, one on the.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
This is some good news, so like to end on good news here, or no, we're not completely done, but, so DOT contacted me, Mitchell Bishop, and I know I emailed y'all, and Representative Balcom wants to do a meeting here, this coming Monday at 9 a.m. We're gonna do it in council chambers, we'll invite the public, particularly maybe some folks from Wildwood might want to be here, but they've approved the sound barrier walls, so that's been put back in the project, so that's really good news. We were waiting to hear this month what the results of the sound study that they were going to do, but so it's been approved. It's great news for our residents, the town, and they want to be here to, I guess, kind of present it and maybe answer questions like how long is it going to take, all that kind of thing.
Are we gonna put out a robocall or anything?
That's a good, yeah, I think I'm gonna do, yeah.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah,
Especially
It was,
in the neighborhood.
it was in a newsletter, right?
yeah, we put it in the newsletter to make sure people know.
And I guess maybe just social media too then.
Yes.
I was gonna say, I'm not on Facebook much, but I have noticed the past couple times I've gone on there, that the Facebook for Fletcher's been popping up.
And I see Sheila's been adding a few things on things happening in the town.
A little bit.
Good.
So, that's all I had, and I know we got a closed session item for contractual.
Yeah, and before we do that, I just have one item of business. In talking with the manager, and sorry to be talking about Fletcher Fire and Rescue so much this evening, we thought it might be best to come up with a committee with the mission to update our contract with Fletcher Fire and Rescue, and want to ask staff to come up with some kind of proposal of what that could look like. I think we are all in agreement that that contract needs to be updated. I do know one thing, if you'll serve, I think you have some pretty good relevant experience and you serve as our liaison. So if you'll serve on that committee, that'd be great, and we could figure out the rest of it in the future. Are we all okay with that?
Well, I've just figured we would be discussing that in closed session.
We'll
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, okay.
All righty. Is there a motion in a closed session for contract negotiations?
Make a motion?
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of entering closed session, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We're in closed session. Motion. Motion, we have a second.
Second. What's she like?
We'll say it's Keith. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.